The grand ballroom of the Washington, D.C. Convention Center radiated with opulence. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead, scattering light across polished marble floors that gleamed like water under the glow. Rows of white roses lined the stage, draped in navy velvet, giving the evening a solemn yet celebratory air. The Unity for America. Women's Summit had drawn senators' spouses, grassroots leaders, entrepreneurs, and activists from across the country, each dressed in their finest. The hum of conversation filled the room, layered with the clink of champagne flutes and the soft shuffle of heels on stone. For most, this was a night of prestige and affirmation, a chance to be seen at the nation's most glamorous bipartisan event. But for Elon Musk, seated toward the back as he waited to be called forward, the atmosphere felt strangely electric, almost like the tense stillness before a storm. He wasn't unfamiliar with the spotlight. His name had appeared in headlines for decades, linked with rockets, electric cars, artificial intelligence, and controversy. Yet tonight was different. He hadn't come to talk about Tesla or SpaceX, but to speak about unity, how technology could be used not to divide, but to connect. Across the stage stood Jill Biden, poised in an emerald green dress that caught the light with every movement. Her presence was polished, her smile practiced, but her eyes occasionally flicked toward Elon with something sharper, irritation, maybe even disdain. They represented opposite ends of the American spectrum. Jill, a symbol of Washington tradition, grace, and political establishment. Elon, a disruptor, an outsider who had built empires by defying institutions and dismantling norms. The air between them seemed to hum with quiet friction, though the crowd remained blissfully unaware. The moderator, a seasoned journalist with a calm but authoritative voice, stepped up to the podium. Tonight, we celebrate leaders from every walk of life. To begin, I'd like to welcome to the stage two figures who have, in their own ways, shaped our national conversation. Former First Lady Jill Biden, and innovator and entrepreneur Elon Musk. Polite applause rippled through the ballroom. Photographers jostled for position, camera flashes igniting like fireworks as Jill and Elon approached the stage. Jill's gait was graceful, each step measured. Elon, in a sharp navy suit, walked with an ease that seemed casual but carried weight, his salt and pepper hair glinting under the lights, his slight grin giving him the air of someone unfazed by spectacle. They were to take a ceremonial photo together, a symbolic gesture of unity. Jill extended her hand, her smile frozen in place, and Elon met her halfway. To the crowd, it looked like a simple, staged handshake. But in that brief moment, her lips moved, just enough for only him to hear. "Still chasing headlines, Elon? What a shameless opportunist." The words landed like a blade. Elon's hand paused midair, his eyes locking onto hers. For a fraction of a second, the ballroom seemed to shrink until it was only the two of them. No chandeliers, no crowd, no cameras, just her whisper. And the sting of its implication. Opportunist. The label dismissed his decades of risk, of innovation, of sacrifice, reducing him to a man addicted to attention. The applause continued. The cameras kept flashing, but Elon's mind raced. He could let it pass, smile for the photo, and move on. He'd been insulted before, by politicians, by competitors, by critics online. Yet, something in Jill's tone, the smug certainty of it, cut deeper. It wasn't just personal. It was a challenge. His jaw tightened. He straightened his shoulders and turned, not smiling now, but speaking low enough to reach her, clear enough that those close by could hear. "I'm no opportunist, Jill. I just fight for the future. Something you may have forgotten how to do." The words cracked through the air like thunder. The moderator froze, smile faltering. A ripple of gasps spread across the front rows, where guests nearest the stage had caught the exchange. Jill's face stiffened, her eyes widening in shock. For a brief moment, she lost the mask of composure that years in Washington had taught her to maintain. Elon stepped back calmly, letting the cameras take their staged photos. But the atmosphere had shifted. The audience, sensing something extraordinary, leaned forward, whispers cascading through the ballroom, and then the inevitable. Reporters in the press pool lifted their phones, their fingers flying across screens. Within minutes, clips of the tense moment surfaced online. By the time the applause died down, hashtags were already trending. Musk strikes back. Jars Jill's Elon. Chatter Unity Summit Clash. Back on stage, Jill forced a brittle smile, adjusting her dress, her composure struggling to recover. Elon returned to his seat, his expression calm, though his mind replayed the moment over and over. He had come to the summit to speak about unity. Instead, he had just ignited a firestorm. The applause faded, but the tension lingered. Elon sat back in his chair, outwardly calm, though Jill's words still echoed in his mind. Opportunist. He glanced across the stage. She avoided his eyes, her smile tight, her posture rigid. Moments later, Clara, his trusted aide, slipped beside him with a tablet. Her voice was low, urgent. "Elon, you're trending everywhere." But there's more. On the screen was a leaked document, a government contract dated months earlier, authorizing a $750,000 payment to a consulting firm with vague terms, strategic outreach. The signature at the bottom connected the deal to Jill Biden's inner circle. Elon studied it in silence. This wasn't just a personal insult anymore. This was something bigger. "Find out everything you can," he said firmly. Clara nodded, already typing. Meanwhile, Jill sat stiffly across the stage, whispering with her aides, her smile forced. She had meant her jab as a private remark, a way to rattle him. Instead, she had triggered a national spectacle. And now, a storm she could not control. That night, Elon's office buzzed with quiet urgency. Papers and laptops crowded the table. The leaked contract projected onto the wall. Clara spoke quickly, pointing to names and numbers. "It's not just one payment. This firm, Apex Strategies, has received millions in contracts. Hurricane relief, veterans programs, even health care funding, all siphoned away with vague invoices." Elon leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He thought of the families he'd met after disasters, the veterans who had told him their benefits were delayed. So that's where the money went. The next morning, headlines exploded. "Summit Clash exposes contract scandal." News anchors replayed Elon's comeback on loop. Some called him reckless, others brave. But ordinary people online responded differently. A nurse tweeted, "Patients died waiting for supplies. Now we know why." A truck driver posted, "Musk's asking what we've been asking for years. Where's our money?" By midday, a whistleblower reached out. His name was Paul Grayson, a nervous former procurement officer. Meeting Elon in a quiet cafe, he slid a USB drive across the table. "I didn't want to do this," Paul whispered, eyes darting nervously. "But after your speech, I couldn't stay quiet." People got hurt. Inside the drive, emails, spreadsheets, memos. More than $2 million routed through Apex Strategies, with no oversight. Elon's jaw tightened as he scrolled. "This wasn't negligence," he said grimly. "It was deliberate." Paul nodded. They knew. They looked the other way. For Elon, the insult at the summit had lit the fuse. But this was the fire. The whistleblower's files were only the beginning. Back at Elon's office, Clara pinned contracts and payment records onto a board. Red string connecting agencies, names and dollar amounts. The pattern was undeniable. Money intended for real people. Veterans, disaster victims, struggling families, was being funneled into a shell company with no traceable work. Elon paced the room, his arms folded, eyes sharp. "This isn't just about corruption. It's about betrayal," he said. "They let Americans suffer while pretending the funds were used." His voice carried a weight that silenced the team. Clara hesitated, then spoke. "Elon, you need to know. We've started receiving threats. Anonymous emails, phone calls. They want you to back off." Elon gave a faint, humorless smile. "Good. If they're afraid, it means we're close." Still, he knew he couldn't fight this alone. Documents were powerful, but stories were stronger. Clara set up a confidential hotline, and within hours, testimonies poured in. A firefighter from Oklahoma called, his voice thick with frustration. We were promised FEMA funds after the tornado. They never came. We rebuilt our station with donations, while consultants billed hundreds of thousands. A nurse from rural Georgia sobbed as she described patients dying while waiting for medical supplies that were supposedly funded. We kept telling families help was coming, but it never did. Then came the call that shook Elon most. A mother from New Orleans. Her name was Maria. Her voice trembled as she spoke. My son was a veteran. He waited months for mental health services they said were funded. He didn't make it. There was a long pause, her grief filling the silence. Mr. Musk, please don't let this happen to another family. Elon closed his eyes, his throat tightening. Maria, he said softly, I promise you, we're going to fight. For him, for you, for all of them. The stories spread like wildfire. Social media lit up with the hashtag #TruthWithMusk. Grassroots rallies formed outside federal buildings, small but passionate. A video of veterans holding signs, "Where's our money?" went viral. Ordinary Americans, from teachers to truckers, began demanding answers. Amid the growing storm, Elon agreed to a primetime interview with respected journalist Maria Vasquez. The studio lights were harsh, the cameras rolling live. Some say you're chasing fame, Mr. Musk, Vasquez challenged, her tone sharp. That this is just another spectacle. What's your real end game? Elon leaned forward, his hands clasped, his voice steady. My end game is answers. People trusted their government. That trust was broken. I'm not here to score points. I'm here to find out why, and to make sure it never happens again. He shared Maria's story, without names, his voice heavy with emotion. He described the firefighter, the nurse, the countless voices that had called in. Finally, he held up a redacted Apex contract for the cameras. This isn't about one company. It's about a system that allowed this to happen while people suffered. The interview struck a chord. Viewers flooded social media with support, even skeptics acknowledging his sincerity. A retired teacher posted, I've never seen him so real. He's not selling cars, he's fighting for us. Behind the scenes, pressure mounted. A second whistleblower from Apex reached out, confirming meetings where officials deliberately bypassed oversight. The evidence was snowballing into something Washington could no longer ignore. But Elon knew one thing clearly now. This wasn't just a scandal, it was a movement. Weeks later, Elon Musk stood not beneath chandeliers, but inside a modest community center in Baton Rouge. No velvet curtains, no marble floors, just folding chairs arranged in a semicircle. The room was filled with people who had lived the consequences of the corruption. He'd uncovered veterans in worn caps, single mothers clutching purses, retired workers with tired eyes, and young activists holding notebooks. Elon walked to the front. No podium, just a microphone in his hand. He had left the suit jacket behind. His shirt sleeves were rolled up. His voice was warm but steady. Tonight isn't about me. It's about you, your stories, your pain, and your hope. Let's talk. One by one, people rose. Carl, a firefighter, described how his town never received the FEMA funds promised after a flood. Lena, a nurse, spoke of patients she lost while waiting for supplies. Jamal, a young man, told the story of his brother, a veteran who died waiting for care. His voice cracked mid-sentence, and Elon stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. Take your time, son. We're here with you. The room erupted in applause, not for Elon, but for the courage it took to speak. Reporters live-streamed the town hall, and clips spread instantly. Social media buzzed. This isn't politics. This is people finally being heard. A grandmother in Nevada posted, I cried watching that nurse. Musk gave her a voice. When the testimonies ended, Elon addressed the room. His eyes swept across the faces, faces of resilience, of quiet suffering, of determination. I've heard you tonight, and I promise you, we're not done. This isn't about pointing fingers. It's about making sure no one here, or anywhere in America, feels forgotten again. He announced plans for a bipartisan task force and pushed for the Transparency in Contracting Act, which would require federal contracts to be public and audited. But more than that, he pledged to keep coming back, not to glamorous summits, but to community halls like this one. Truth isn't a one-time fix, he said. It's a commitment. Weeks later, the bill passed Congress, a rare bipartisan victory. Jill Biden, facing mounting pressure, gave a televised statement. She admitted her words at the summit were wrong and expressed regret for not questioning the contracts sooner. For Elon, it wasn't about victory or vindication. It was about progress. The story reached its emotional climax at a candlelight vigil on the National Mall. Thousands gathered, holding photos of loved ones lost to systemic neglect. The crowd was silent as Elon took the stage. He didn't start with a speech. Instead, he read names. Carl Thompson, firefighter, lost his home to a flood. Lena Harris, nurse who fought for her patients. Jamal's brother, a veteran who deserved better. With each name, candles lifted higher until the mall glowed like a sea of stars. Finally, Elon raised his own candle. His voice was soft, but it carried through the night. Truth hurts, but it also heals. We've uncovered pain, but we've also found strength. Strength in you, in each other. This isn't the end. It's the beginning. The crowd raised their candles, thousands of flames flickering in the dark. For the first time in a long while, America felt not divided, but united in a quiet, determined resolve. And Elon Musk, the man once dismissed as an opportunist, had become something unexpected, a voice for the forgotten.